as a youth. Till you forgot the scoop on how to get a bulletproof. Sex busting off the roof, and when I was a teenager, mobile phone, sky pager, game rules, I'm living major. My adversaries is getting worried.
On a quiet hospital night, one nurse heard words the world never expected. For years, she stayed silent while rumors grew and legends hardened. Now, her memory pulls us back to a room of machines and calm truth. Those words reshaped how legend is remembered. What did Tupac really say when time was slipping away? The night, the music stopped. Las Vegas shimmered that night like it always did when the city felt important. Neon lights stretched across the strip, glowing against the dark sky, promising joy and escape. Crowds poured out of the MGM Grand after the heavyweight boxing match. Voices loud, laughter loose, energy still rising. Cars crawled along the road as music drifted through open windows. It felt like another victorious night where fame and money ruled the moment. Tupac Shakur was riding through that glow, not as a symbol, not as a myth, but as a man enjoying the heat of the night. He sat inside a black BMW with Suge Knight driving. The fight was over, and the city buzzed with excitement. The air felt charged, like something big had just happened, and something bigger was still waiting. Traffic slowed near a busy intersection, and the music from nearby cars mixed with flashing signs and restless movement. Then everything shattered. A white Cadillac pulled close. In seconds, the joy vanished. Firearms ripped through the night, sharp and sudden. Screams replaced laughter. Cars swerved as panic spread across the road. The BMW was hit again and again. Glass broke. Metal screamed. The city that never slept froze in shock as chaos swallowed the moment whole. Inside the car, Tupac was badly hurt. Blood soaked his clothes as the pain crashed over him. He was awake, confused, and struggling to breathe. The strength people saw on stage was gone, replaced by raw human fear and disbelief. This was not a legend falling. This was a young man fighting to stay present while his body failed him. Suge Knight was injured too, but still able to move. Bystanders ran for help as police cars arrived, lights spinning red and blue across the street. Sirens screamed into the night, cutting through the silence that followed the shots. Officers rushed in, voices urgent, hands moving fast. The celebration from moments earlier felt unreal now, like a dream already fading. Paramedics arrived and worked quickly. Tupac was pulled from the car with care and urgency. His breathing was shallow, his face pale, his eyes heavy but open. The noise around him blurred into something distant. Hands pressed against his wounds. Commands were shouted. Time felt broken, moving too fast and too slow at once. As he was placed inside the ambulance, the outside world began to disappear. The doors slammed shut, sealing him inside a narrow space filled with bright lights and sharp smells. Machines hummed softly. The sound of sirens continued, but now it felt far away, like it belonged to someone else's life. The chaos stayed outside, trapped behind steel and glass. Inside, the air was tense and quiet. Every movement mattered. Every second carried weight. Tupac lay still, caught between pain and awareness, drifting in and out as the ambulance sped forward. The noise of Las Vegas, the lights, the cheers, and the music were gone. All that remained was breath, heartbeat, and the fight to hold on. The city kept glowing behind them, unaware that one of its brightest stars was fading inside a moving box of white and red. The night that began with celebration had turned into something dark and fragile. The road rushed beneath the tires as the vehicle moved through the city. Streetlights flashed past in steady rhythm, each one marking another moment survived. Medics focused on their work, faces calm but serious, trained to stay steady when life hung thin. Tupac's chest rose and fell with effort, each breath sounding like a quiet struggle. Sweat mixed with blood as his body tried to endure the shock. Outside, traffic pulled aside, drivers unaware of who was inside, but sensing the emergency. The siren carried a warning and a plea at the same time. Inside the ambulance, fear had no voice, hope had no shape, and time felt suspended, waiting for whatever came next beyond the doors ahead. Ahead waited bright hospital lights and unanswered questions, while the night held its breath for what would follow next. Inside, the hospital walls. The hospital stood awake while the night outside continued its restless motion. Bright lights washed over smooth floors as doors opened and closed with urgency. The air carried the sharp scent of medicine mixed with something heavier, something human. Voices stayed low but focused, moving through hallways like careful footsteps, in a place where time mattered more than words. This was not a place for celebration or noise. This was a place where life balanced on quiet moments. The room prepared for him felt tense, almost crowded, even before anyone spoke. Machines lined the walls, their soft lights blinking in steady patterns. Thin wires traced paths across the space, connecting body to sound, breath to rhythm. Each machine hummed gently, filling the silence with reminders that every second was being watched and counted. The room did not feel peaceful, it felt alert, waiting. Doctors and nurses moved with trained speed. Their faces were calm, but their eyes held focus and concern. Hands worked carefully, checking levels, adjusting lines, making sure nothing was missed. No movement was wasted, no action was rushed. The room became a quiet battlefield where skill and time worked together against uncertainty. Among them stood one nurse, steady and observant. She had worked many nights like this before, nights filled with long hours and heavy moments. She knew how to stay calm when others felt shaken. To her, this was a patient who needed care, attention, and respect. She followed instructions closely, her movements smooth and controlled. She did not know yet that this night would follow her for the rest of her life. On the bed lay Tupac Shakur, far from the bright stages and loud crowds. He was no longer surrounded by music or applause. He was surrounded by soft lights and quiet concern. His body bore the weight of pain. His breathing was uneven, rising and falling with effort. Sweat gathered on his skin as his body struggled to keep pace with what was happening inside him. At moments he seemed distant, as if drifting far away. Then suddenly he returned, eyes fluttering open, awareness pushing through exhaustion. Strength and vulnerability took turns within him. One moment he appeared grounded, the next he looked fragile. The nurse noticed these shifts, watching closely without drawing attention. She adjusted her position, staying near enough to respond, far enough to give space. The sounds of the machines filled the room steadily. Each soft tone felt louder because no one spoke. Words seemed unnecessary and possibly dangerous. Silence carried meaning here. It allowed focus. It allowed listening. It allowed everyone to sense the gravity of what could not be said aloud. The nurse observed his face carefully. She saw tension pass through his jaw, then ease. She saw effort in every breath. She noticed how his hands rested still, then twitched slightly as if his body were reminding itself that it was still here. She had seen many patients in pain, but something about this moment felt different. There was a presence in the room that could not be explained. Thoughts filled the air even though mouths stayed closed. Everyone seemed to understand that this moment mattered beyond routine care. There was fear, but it was controlled. There was hope, but it was cautious. The nurse felt both without letting either show. She had learned that balance through years of experience. Time moved slowly, then quickly, then slowly again. Minutes stretched longer than they should, then slipped away unnoticed. The nurse checked the machines again, listening closely to the rhythm they set. The sound became familiar, almost comforting, even as it reminded her how fragile the situation remained. Tupac shifted slightly, his breathing changing. His chest rose with more effort, then settled. His face moved as if he were waking from a deep sleep. The nurse leaned in a little closer, alert but gentle. She did not rush him. She understood that moments like this required patience more than action. Others in the room noticed the change. Movements slowed, eyes focused. The air felt tighter, filled with expectation. No one spoke. No one wanted to break whatever balance was forming. The nurse felt her attention sharpen. She sensed that something important was approaching, even if she did not know what it would be. His eyes opened more fully now. They were tired, but they were clear. He looked around the room, taking in the lights, the shapes, the faces. Awareness settled into his gaze. The nurse saw recognition there, a quiet understanding of where he was and what surrounded him. It was a look she had seen only a few times in her career. He took a breath, deeper than before. His lips moved slightly, testing strength, preparing. The nurse stayed close, her posture calm, her focus complete. She knew to listen, not just with her ears, but with her presence. The machines continued their steady rhythm, marking time as they always did. The room leaned inward without moving. Everyone felt it. A moment was forming, fragile and unrepeatable. Silence grew heavier than sound. His lips parted just enough to signal intention. The nurse understood then that words were coming, and that whatever followed would change everything she thought she knew about this night. The words no one expected. The room felt tight with waiting as his breathing shifted. The nurse stayed close, leaning in just enough to hear him without rushing his strength. His lips moved slowly, and when sound finally came, it was soft but steady. Every word required effort, yet nothing sounded confused. His voice did not shake. It carried calm, as if he had already made peace with the moment he was in. The machines continued their gentle rhythm, marking time without emotion, while something deeply human unfolded beside them. The nurse listened with full attention. Years of training had taught her how to hear more than sound. She noticed the way his eyes stayed focused when he spoke, the way his face remained relaxed even as pain passed through him. His words were not long, they were not dramatic, they were deliberate. Each one felt chosen, shaped by thought rather than fear. There was no anger rising from his chest. There was no rush to explain himself. What came through instead was awareness. As he spoke, a quiet strength filled the space. It was not the strength of shouting or resistance. It was the strength of someone who knew who he was, even now. The nurse felt it immediately. This was not the voice people expected. It did not match the stories told about him. It did not sound like the image repeated on screens and in headlines. This voice belonged to a man who understood the weight of the moment and faced it without panic. Others in the room noticed the difference too. Some looked up quickly, surprise written across their faces. A few exchanged silent glances, unsure of how to react. They had prepared themselves for silence, or for anger, or for confusion. What they received instead was calm honesty. The air shifted. The room seemed to slow, as if everyone present understood that this moment could not be rushed. The nurse felt her heart tighten as she realized what she was witnessing. She had seen many patients speak during painful moments. Fear usually came first. Regret often followed. This was different. His words did not ask for pity. They did not beg for understanding. They simply existed, steady and clear, like a final thought placed carefully on the table. The contrast between this moment and the public image of him was impossible to ignore. Outside these walls, he was often described as loud, aggressive, and restless. Inside this room, he was thoughtful and controlled. The nurse wondered how many people truly knew this side of him. She wondered how many would ever believe it. The thought made her chest feel heavy. Time moved strangely. Seconds felt stretched, then suddenly gone. He paused between words, drawing breath, resting, then continuing. No one interrupted him. No one tried to guide the moment. Even the machines seemed quieter, their steady sounds blending into the background as if they understood the importance of what was happening. The nurse focused on every detail, the tone of his voice, the pace of his breathing, the calm in his eyes. She knew memory could fade, but she also knew some moments stay sharp forever. This was one of them. She understood even then that this would be something she carried for the rest of her life. As his strength dipped, his words became fewer. Still, the meaning did not fade. The room remained still, filled with unspoken reactions. Some felt shock. Others felt confusion. A few felt something close to disbelief. None of them spoke. Everyone sensed that responding too quickly would break the fragile balance holding the moment together. When he finished, silence settled gently over the room. It was not empty, it was full of understanding. The nurse stayed close, her expression calm, her thoughts racing. She felt honored and burdened at the same time. What she had heard was not meant for crowds or arguments. It was not meant to be twisted or reshaped. It was meant to exist exactly as it was spoken. The machines continued their steady rhythm, reminding everyone that time had not stopped. The nurse looked at him and saw exhaustion return to his face. His eyes slowly closed, his breathing evening out again. The moment had passed, but its weight remained. In that quiet, the nurse realized something that made her hands feel warm and cold at once. These words might never be spoken again. They might never be shared beyond this room. They might live and rest on inside memory alone. The thought frightened her, but it also felt right. Some truths are not meant to travel far. Some are meant to be held carefully, protected by silence, the weight of silence. The nurse left the hospital that night under a sky that no longer felt the same. The bright lights of the building faded behind her as she stepped outside, carrying something heavy she could not see or explain. Her uniform smelled of medicine and long hours, but her mind was filled with something deeper. She had come to work expecting an ordinary shift. She went home changed in a way she would never fully escape. The city was quiet in places and loud in others, moving forward without pause. Cars passed. People laughed somewhere in the distance. Life continued, unaware that a moment of history had just slipped into the past. The nurse walked slowly, replaying the night in her thoughts. The sounds of machines, the look in his eyes, the calm that surprised her, all followed her home. She tried to sleep, but rest did not come easily. Her mind stayed awake, holding on to every detail. Days turned into weeks. Weeks became months. Then years passed. The world outside began to tell its own version of the story. News spread fast, then faster. People talked, argued, and guessed. Stories grew larger, louder, and more dramatic. Rumors filled the space where truth should have lived. Some stories painted him as angry until the end. Others turned his final moments into mystery and speculation. Each new version felt further away from what she had witnessed. The nurse stayed silent. She returned to work, helped other patients, and lived her life as best she could. On the surface, everything looked normal. Inside, the memory stayed sharp. She carried it carefully, like something fragile that could break if handled the wrong way. She did not speak about that night, not to friends, not to family, not to coworkers. Silence became her shield. At times, the silence felt like respect. She believed some moments were not meant for public noise. What she heard belonged to that room, that night, and that man. Sharing it felt wrong, like breaking a promise no one had asked her to make. She told herself that protecting the moment was the right thing to do. Other times, the silence felt like fear. She knew how quickly people doubted quiet voices. She was not famous. She was not powerful. She was only a nurse who happened to be there. She wondered who would believe her if she spoke. She imagined being questioned, judged, or dismissed. The thought of standing alone against loud opinions made her retreat further into quiet. As years passed, the world grew louder. Music kept playing. New generations discovered his work without knowing the man behind it. The image of him hardened into something fixed and unchanging. Anger became the story many remembered most. Each time she heard his name, the nurse felt a small ache. She knew there was more to him than what people said. She knew his final moments did not match the image repeated again and again. Guilt slowly found its way into her silence. She asked herself if staying quiet allowed the wrong story to grow. She wondered if truth mattered if it remained hidden. At night, when the world slowed down, she replayed the moment again. She questioned her choice, then defended it, then questioned it once more. The struggle never fully left her. Time blurred the edges of memory, but not the feeling. The emotion stayed clear, even as details softened. She feared that if she waited too long, even she might begin to doubt herself. Still, she remained silent. It felt safer that way. It felt easier to carry the burden alone than to place it into a world that might twist it. Then something shifted. Culture began to change. People started asking deeper questions. They wanted truth, not just drama. Voices once ignored were finally being heard. Stories from the past were being re-examined with care instead of hunger. The nurse noticed this change slowly, like a tide pulling back before returning stronger. One day a request arrived. It was simple and polite, an interview invitation. Nothing demanding, nothing aggressive, just a question asking if she would be willing to share her experience from that night. She stared at the message for a long time. Her heart beat faster. The silence she had built around herself began to crack. She realized the choice she had avoided for years now stood directly in front of her. She could remain quiet and protect the moment forever, or she could speak and risk misunderstanding. The weight she carried suddenly felt heavier than before. For the first time, silence no longer felt like safety. It felt like a decision that needed to be faced. When silence learned to speak, the nurse did not decide quickly. When she finally agreed to speak, it was not because fear disappeared. It was because silence had grown heavier than truth. Years of holding one moment inside her had shaped her life in quiet ways. She carried it to work, carried it home, carried it through long nights and busy days. When she chose to tell her story, it felt like opening a door that had been locked for too long. The day she spoke, her voice stayed calm. She did not raise it, She did not decorate the moment. She simply explained what she witnessed and how it felt. She spoke as a nurse, not as a storyteller chasing attention. Her words moved slowly, guided by memory and care. She shared the space, the feeling, the weight of the room. She focused on the humanity of the moment, not the drama around it. When she finished, she felt lighter and more exposed at the same time. The reaction came fast. News traveled quickly, jumping from one screen to another. Some people leaned in with disbelief. Others pushed back with anger. Many paused, unsure what to think. The world was not used to quiet truths. It was used to loud claims and sharp opinions. Her calm voice disrupted that pattern. It asked people to listen instead of react. Some questioned her reasons. They asked why she waited so long. Others accused her of seeking attention, unable to accept that patients could exist without motive. The nurse watched from a distance, overwhelmed by the noise she never wanted. She reminded herself why she spoke. She did not do it to be believed by everyone. She did it to be honest. As days passed, the tone began to shift. Amid the arguments and anger, reflection slowly appeared. Fans revisited his music, listening differently. They searched for softness they once ignored. They noticed depth where they once saw only fire. For some, the story did not change what they believed. For others, it opened a door they did not know existed. The image of Tupac Shakur began to soften in small but meaningful ways. He was still powerful. He was still bold. But now, more people saw him as human. They imagined him in that hospital room, tired and aware, choosing calm over chaos. The nurse's story reminded them that even the strongest voices become quiet in the end. Conspiracy theories did not disappear. They never do. Some clung tighter than before, insisting mystery mattered more than reality. They wanted secrets, hidden meanings, and unfinished puzzles. The nurse did not argue with them. She knew mystery feeds on noise. Truth survives on patience. What she offered was simple. It did not solve everything. It did not explain every rumor or answer every question. It did something quieter. It grounded the moment. It pulled attention away from shadows and placed it back on a human experience. Final words, she showed, are not always meant to shock. Sometimes they are meant to settle. The media continued to discuss and debate. Headlines changed shape. Some softened, others sharpened. The nurse stayed mostly silent after her first statement. She had said what she came to say. The rest belonged to the world. She returned to her life, to her work, to ordinary days that felt different now. The weight she carried for so long no longer pressed against her chest. Fans began sharing their own reflections. Some wrote about how the story changed the way they understood his songs. Others spoke about loss, about how final moments can surprise those left behind. A few admitted they never thought of him as gentle until now. The story did not rewrite history. It added a missing layer. The contrast became clear. For years, theories tried to turn his final moments into something larger than life. The nurse's truth brought them back to something smaller and more real. A room, a man, a moment, no performance, no audience, just breath and meaning. As the weeks passed, the noise slowly faded. The outrage cooled, the disbelief softened. Reflection remained. The nurse watched quietly, understanding that reactions come and go. What mattered was that the truth no longer lived only inside her. It existed in the open, even if not everyone accepted it. She realized something important during this time. Truth does not destroy mystery. It changes its shape. It moves mystery away from rumor and closer to understanding. The questions did not vanish. They became gentler, more thoughtful. Instead of asking what happened, people began asking why last moments matter so much. As attention drifted elsewhere, one question stayed behind, steady and unanswered. What do last words really mean when the world is listening, and when it finally grows quiet again? The echo that never rested. Time has a strange way of softening some memories while sharpening others. Years passed, yet the final words spoken in that quiet hospital room did not fade. They lived on, not as noise, but as meaning. Last words often become mirrors, reflecting the life that came before them. In this case, they reflected complexity, thought, and calm that many never expected. For those who heard the story later, the words reshaped how they understood the man behind the music. Tupac Shakur had always been larger than life. His voice filled rooms, his presence challenged systems, and his words stirred emotion. Yet the final echo that remained was not loud. It was gentle. It revealed a person who understood himself deeply, even as his strength slipped away. Music continued to play across the world. Songs reached new listeners, carried by time into fresh ears. People heard familiar lyrics differently now. Lines once taken as anger sounded more like urgency. Passion felt closer to purpose. Pain felt more honest. The nurse's memory added depth to the sound. It reminded listeners that behind every powerful voice is a human heart. Culture kept moving, but the story lingered quietly within it. Discussions softened. Some arguments lost their sharp edge. People began speaking less about myth and more about meaning. The idea of Tupac as only one thing no longer held as strongly. He became layered. He became real. The echo of his final calm touched places that noise never could. For the nurse, life slowly returned to its steady rhythm. Workdays passed, faces changed, seasons came and went. Yet something inside her had settled. She no longer carried the weight alone. She had honored the moment by protecting it when needed, and sharing it when the time felt right. That balance brought her peace. She understood now that truth does not always need to be loud to be powerful. Sometimes it needs patience. Sometimes it needs silence before it can breathe. By honoring what she witnessed, she honored the man who trusted the room enough to speak. The nurse reflected often on how last words shape memory. They do not define a life, but they can illuminate it. In this case, they revealed calm where chaos was expected. They showed clarity where confusion was assumed. They reminded the world that strength can exist without noise. Legacy and legend often fight for space. Legends grow large and rigid. They simplify people into symbols. Legacy is quieter. It lives in impact, in memory, and in meaning passed from one heart to another. Tupac's legend had always been strong. His legacy, shaped by both his life and his final words, became deeper. The nurse never claimed to hold the full truth. She only carried a moment. That moment, however, mattered. It became a bridge between the public image and the private human being. It reminded people that no matter how large someone becomes, they still leave the world one breath at a time. As years continued, new voices rose, new stories formed, and new debates filled the air. Yet beneath all of it, the echo remained. It was not dramatic. It did not demand attention. It waited patiently, touching those who were willing to listen closely. In quiet moments, the nurse sometimes thought back to that room. The soft light, the steady machines, the stillness that followed his words. She remembered how time seemed to pause, how the world narrowed to breath and meaning. That memory no longer felt heavy. It felt complete. She understood that history is not always shaped by grand speeches or final declarations. Sometimes it is shaped by a whisper spoken in trust, and sometimes it is shaped by those who listen carefully and choose respect over noise.